The Barefoot Bruin is a rugged, full-grain leather, hard-use work boot touted as the perfect companion to the foot health-minded blue-collar worker. It features a unique blend of sturdy materials and robust features while managing to balance with the barefoot DNA of other popular minimalist shoe brands. Is it possible for the blue-collar world and the barefoot industry to cross paths? That question is what this review is all about. Hey folks, I'm glad you're here. My name is Chris, and this is the Sons of Sever YouTube channel where there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. Today we are talking about the Barefoot Bruin, which is a truly unique barefoot boot. It has the DNA of a blue-collar, hard field work boot, but it's got all the barefoot DNA that you would want in a healthier option for footwear. I was super excited when Barefoot agreed to send these out because they are just so different. In my opinion, they're kind of a breath of fresh air in the barefoot world where almost every company is trying to do more or less the same thing. None of them have tried to do this until Barefoot. We're gonna do what we always do. We're gonna start on the website talking about the specs of the boot, and then Eric and I are gonna ping pong back and forth talking about what we like, what we dislike, and our experience with the Bruin. Starting on the website, I'm gonna start with the specifications of the upper, which is 2.2 millimeter full grain Crazy Horse leather. It is semi-lined with mestizo leather, and the insole is also mestizo leather. The stack height is 15 millimeters. I think that's total between the outsole and the insole. It's hard to get the outsoles out of this. You totally can, but we didn't. So we're just gonna call the stack height 15 millimeters for the remainder of the video. This boot is zero drop. It is a rather hefty 1 pound and 10.6 ounces, which is a lot compared to some of the other barefoot boots we've been reviewing so far. It has a fantastically wide toe box, and it is made in Mexico. Last thing I want to do before I kick things over to Eric for his likes is talk about the texturing on the bottom. Your eyes do not deceive you. The texturing and the traction is in the form of bear claws. If you didn't already know about this boot, hopefully your interest is piqued. But without further ado, I'm going to send things over to Eric to kick us off with his likes of the Barefoot Bruin.
So when it comes to my likes of the Barefoot Bruin, the first thing that comes to mind, and what I think is their biggest selling point, is the very durable way that they have been constructed. It's very unique among barefoot boots who are trying to cut weight as much as possible and keep as much flexibility as possible too. These ones prioritized a very durable sole. You can see that it's been sewn on as well as glued. That makes it very unique, and it makes it so that you can re-sole this boot. So once that outsole wears out, that's not the end of the story. That's not the end of the life of this boot. You can take it to go get repaired, and you cannot do that with any of the other boots that we've reviewed so far this fall and winter. So even though they come in at $250, I think that the life of these is going to be much, much more than their counterparts that are being sold from anywhere from $140 to $180-ish, somewhere around there. So I really, really like the value that these have. I think that they're a fantastically rugged boot. If you're looking for a shop boot or for a work boot and you want those barefoot qualities, then this is gonna be your answer. It's gonna be awesome for you. There's a few other things about it that I think prove how much thought went into the construction of the boot. You can see these cutouts right there, and those provide a lot of mobility for you, which I think was really cool. And then back here, you've got this cutout too, and that makes it pretty comfortable for how high they go up on your calf. So I just really like the way that this thing has been put together. I think that it's really, really cool. After the initial break-in period, this thing is super comfortable as well. That leather really softens up and becomes very pliable around your foot, which is really nice. And the insole, which is also leather, really molds to your foot and gives you a nice place to put your foot into. And obviously its wide toe box and the fact that it's zero drop and fairly flexible gives your foot a lot of comfort while you're wearing it. And the last thing that I'll say about it is the look has actually grown on me. When I first got it, I wasn't too sure about it, and I think that's just because of how unique that it is. But it totally has grown on me. I think that this is very cool looking for casual wear as well as blue collar working jobs. You'll see some videos of Chris while he's out driving his truck wearing it, and I think that it fits in there really well. But again, to reiterate, I think its biggest strength is just how durable and how unique it's been constructed. The fact that it can be repaired gives it a ton of value, and that's what I really like about the Barefoot Bruin. So over to Chris now so that he can give you his perspective on the things that he likes about it.
Kicking off my likes of the Barefoot Bruin, I want to start by talking about the materials. When you're first researching these things on social media and on their website, they look ridiculously soft and pliable, but they don't come that way. These things can be fairly rigid. I'm going to talk about that in my dislikes, but talking about what I like about the materials is the leather definitely seems sturdy, quality, and it breaks in really nice, so it does end up becoming pretty dang soft. I also love the smell. It smells like the inside of a country western store, and even after 2 months of having them and using them, they still smell that way. I also want to mention the ruggedness of the materials. I am a blue collar worker, and this thing is held up to my line of work very, very nicely, as well as some yard work, some working in pumpkin patches, and some things of that nature as well. I have loved this thing for all of that. Barefoot talks a lot about how these are built to last, and I 100% believe them. Next thing I want to talk about is the toe box. The toe box is so very wide. You have all of the room that you need to splay your toesies out, and it does it without making your foot feel like it's gonna slide and slosh around. I know we don't all have crazy wide feet. My feet are probably like medium wide, definitely on the wider end of the spectrum, but not the widest, and I appreciate the room that this toe box gives my feet to spread out. The last thing I want to mention is the traction. I actually really like this traction pattern. I thought just looking at it that it was going to be a little bit gimmicky, but I'll say this bear claw pattern that they have on here actually works really, really nicely. I've started using this on snow and ice as the weather has gotten colder and we've gotten a little bit more precipitation, and I haven't had any issues with slipping. Last thing to mention about the sole that I really like to finish off my likes here is I like the fact that it's resolable. This boot is built to last for years and years and years. I'd love to bring you guys a Barefoot Bruin update in 5 years or so to see how they're holding up. We'll see if we can make that happen. But for now, I'm gonna send things back over to Eric to kick off our dislikes. But before we do that, I'm gonna mention some affiliates, one of which is Barefoot. Spoiler alert, we do like this product. It may not be our favorite boot in the whole wide world, and there will be a video about that somewhere down the line, but we do like it, and we do have an affiliate link with Barefoot down in the description. The other affiliate that I want to mention is an affiliate that would pair fantastic with a pair of Bruins, and that is Creeper's toe socks. I especially like to wear the higher version, the crew cut. While merino wool isn't amazing for warmth, it does a pretty good job keeping your feet warm, especially if you're moving. One of the dislikes I'm going to get into is the fact that the Bruin isn't fantastic for cold weather unless you pair it with the right socks, and Creepers are the right socks for me, personally, that make the Barefoot Bruin just fine in colder weather. If you're interested in learning more about Creepers, then make sure to go and watch our toe sock roundup, where this one out of a pool of 7 different toe socks, and then you can go and check out their website at the link down in our description. There's also a discount code down there that you can use if you decide to buy some in order to save yourself some money. Now I'm going to send things over to Eric so he can talk to you about what he doesn't like about the Barefoot Bruin.
All right, when it comes to my dislikes of the boot, the first thing that comes to mind is that it is the most difficult boot of all the ones we've gotten this fall and winter to put on. You really have to loosen this up down here in order to open it up wide enough to get your foot on, and it doesn't have heel loop to help you out either. So on the inside, that leather that's along the back is kind of rough, so your socks don't really slide very well. There's a lot of friction there as you're trying to get your heel in, so it is tough to put on, and that's definitely not a deal breaker, but it is something that kind of bothers me about it. The construction on the tongue, as thoughtful as the rest of the boot has been constructed and as durable as it is, this is kind of like this weird pleated tongue, the way that they've got the material folded over there. And when you first put it on, I feel like you can kind of feel those folds and that extra material that's right there. And it's not like it hurts your foot or anything, but it's just noticeable. You put your foot in it and then you can feel all this extra material on top of your foot. And that does go away for the most part with the break-in period, which is my next point. It definitely has a break-in period where you've got these boots like the Lems Boulder Summit or the Boulder Boot Grip that have no break-in period at all. Like Chris and I took the Summit on an 8-mile hike in the snow the day after we received those boots, and our feet were perfectly fine. This definitely has a break-in period. When I first got it, my heel rubbed quite a bit on the back until I, was able to adjust it just right and my foot could really settle into everything. But now that it is broken in, it's very comfortable. So you definitely just have to get through that break-in period there. And then the last thing that I'll say about them is that they are less versatile of a boot for me, at least. So coming in at 1 pound and 10.6 ounces, I think is what it is. These are quite a bit heavier than the other Barefoot boots that we've gotten. And I don't think that this traction is really built for the trail, where you've got some like the Boulder Summit that have a really aggressive lug pattern. These ones aren't gonna do as well as some on the trail. So for me, this isn't really a boot that I'm gonna turn to go hiking with. It's really just gonna be like a work boot or a casual boot. So I do think that it has a little bit less versatility than the rest of them. And I just like our shoes and our boots to be as versatile as possible. And now back over to Chris so that he can tell you about his dislikes of the boot.
Talking about my dislikes of the Barefoot Bruin, I'm gonna go back to the materials and talk about them a little bit. We mentioned that the leather breaks in pretty nice and becomes relatively soft, but the issue is the sole doesn't do the same thing, which, I think that's technically a good thing. You don't want your sole to become more floppy over time, or softer, I guess, for a better word. But that sole is really, really rigid. This is not a toe-to-toe, but just for comparison, I'm gonna bring another boot online real quick. This is the Lems Boulder Summit. It is a 20 millimeter stack height, so 5 more millimeters, and you'll notice that it is quite flexible. You can bend and twist and fold this guy just fine. We're not getting quite that much action with the Bruin. So while it is a thin sole and it is a flat construction, it isn't very flexible. Now, I think this is purpose built into the construction of what this boot was made for. It's meant to be more hardcore, more rugged, and with that usually comes a heftier sole. Other Barefoot shoe companies are using air-injected rubbers to lighten up the volume of that rubber. That's not this. This is a dense, thick, sturdy piece of rubber. So if the lack of that flexibility bothers you, that might be something to look out for. I personally could do with a little bit more flex here, but I do understand why it is the way that it is. The next thing I want to talk about is the weatherproofing. I do wish that they would come out with a version of this boot that had a waterproof membrane of some kind. While they are definitely water resistant as sealed leather will be, they're gonna let water in if they're submerged, and when leather gets soaked, water does seep through it. With that, also no insulation. That's not to say that these things aren't usable in winter and snow and wet conditions. They are. You're gonna want the right pair of socks, and you're gonna wanna make sure that those conditions aren't too wet. If it's cold, powdery snow, not so much the slushy, ultra wet stuff, you're gonna be okay. But if you're splashing through too many puddles in this thing consistently, your feet may get wet. So I'd like to see a little bit more weatherproofing built into this boot. So the lack of flexibility and the lack of weatherproofing are going to be my two biggest gripes with this thing. Otherwise, I honestly kind of love it. We are also going to be trying out the Barefoot Ursas here in the future, which are mostly used as like a dedicated weightlifting shoe. We like Barefoot's DNA. We like the direction they're moving in. We think that there could be some improvements with this specific model, but we do like it for what it is, and we're excited to work with more of their products in the future. Now to pass things back over to Eric to give you our outro for the video.
All right, so for our final opinion of the Barefoot Bruin, I think that while it might not be the most versatile of all the barefoot boots that we've gotten this winter, it certainly is the most valuable. It is a little bit more expensive, but the fact that it's been constructed so well, so uniquely, and in a way that it can be repaired gives it a ton of value, and we think that it's totally worth it for you if you're looking for a work boot or a shop boot, something like that. So it is one that we really like, and it is one that we definitely recommend. As always, folks, thanks for the view. We really appreciate it. We hope that you found this video informative and helpful, and let us know down in the comments if you would like to see the Barefoot Bruin go toe-to-toe against any of the other boots that we've reviewed so far, or just any other boot that's out there. We would love to hear the suggestions and be able to reach out to more companies and get more gear into our hands so that we can review them for you. There's a few different places that you can follow us on social media. So we have an Instagram page that's associated with this YouTube channel. Go look up the Sons of Sever on Instagram for more up-to-date posts about the gear that we're working with. And we also have a Strava account that we're very active on. That's like the social media for exercising and hiking and being outdoorsy. You can log all of your adventures on Strava. So you can go on there, you can see what we're doing. We always list what gear we're using as we go run or we go hike or do other things. And we would love if you would come and follow us there and become a part of the community that we are building. And as always, we will see you in the mountains.